On a snowy evening in January 2023, the lives of two siblings from Alberta, Canada, took a terrifying turn on a deserted road. 13-year-old Lilly Sullivan and her 17-year-old brother Jack were last spotted entering their car at a local convenience store. But within minutes, they had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that would chill the community to its core. Their vehicle was discovered abandoned on the side of a snow-covered road, but any sign of the missing siblings had disappeared into thin air. Days turned into an agonizing week with little progress in the search, raising questions about what could have possibly happened to them. As the days passed without answers, worry turned into dread for the family and friends of the missing teens. Then, just when all hope seemed to be fading, a glimmer of something appeared in the vast emptiness of the investigation. Disturbing fragments began to emerge, sending shockwaves through the community and painting a chilling picture of the events surrounding the case. These fragments were like pieces of a cryptic puzzle, each one more unsettling than the last, hinting at a sinister narrative that went beyond a simple disappearance. Amidst the sea of uncertainty, 4 cassette tapes were discovered buried beneath the snow near the spot where the siblings were last seen. Each tape contained fragments of recordings, not of the siblings themselves, but of conversations about them. The tapes had been meticulously labeled 1 through 4, suggesting a twisted game or a macabre countdown to something sinister. The unsettling nature of these audio recordings sent chills down everyone's spine, offering a glimpse into a dark world that had become intertwined with the fate of the missing teenagers. But it was the contents of these tapes that truly unveiled the gravity of the situation. One of the most haunting recordings featured the voice of Jack himself, who spoke in a tone that suggested he was under duress. In his message, Jack revealed that he was awake and that he was being watched every moment. This revelation raised disturbing questions about the circumstances surrounding their disappearance and the potential danger their captors had inflicted upon them. As if the audio recordings weren't enough to send shivers down everyone's spine, another disturbing detail emerged from the snowy terrain near where the tapes were found. A deck of playing cards lay abandoned, seemingly discarded by whoever had left the tapes. Among the cards, 3 bore peculiar markings: the Queen of Hearts, the Ace of Spades, and the 10 of Diamonds, each marked with a single black dot. This bizarre addition of symbols suggested a sinister game was afoot. The playing cards seemed to be more than just a random assortment. Instead, they hinted at a twisted game orchestrated by the person or people responsible for the siblings' disappearance. It was as if the perpetrator wanted to taunt investigators and the worried loved ones of the missing teens, leaving behind breadcrumbs of a twisted puzzle that made no sense. This wasn't an isolated incident. Days later, similar scenes unfolded. New cassette tapes were found, again with instructions on how to locate them hidden on playing cards. And as the public waited with bated breath for any update in the case, the investigators found themselves chasing shadows. The tapes led them on a wild goose chase, often pointing them to places that held no answers or evidence in the case. And with each passing day, the fear that something terrible had befallen the siblings grew stronger. Yet amidst this distressing narrative, a ray of hope emerged. On January, after 6 long days of searching, authorities announced that the siblings had been spotted on a surveillance video entering a farmhouse located along Highway 2A. The building in question was an abandoned farmhouse that had been unoccupied for several years. Its sudden appearance in the video raised more questions than it answered. Why would the siblings, particularly Lilly, who had never strayed too far from home before, venture into such a desolate place? And how did they manage to access the property considering it had been vacant for so long? The presence of the siblings on the video was a significant development, yet it only deepened the mystery surrounding their disappearance. It offered a glimpse into their actions prior to vanishing, but failed to shed light on their current whereabouts or the motives behind their actions. Adding another layer to this already complex web of intrigue, the investigation revealed that the abandoned farmhouse had a connection to a man named Sean Lamb. He had recently purchased the property, but the details surrounding his acquisition of the house remained unclear. His past and his intentions for the farmhouse were shrouded in secrecy, making him a person of interest in the case. The investigators found themselves at a crossroads, trying to piece together the fragments of information while dealing with the emotional toll the case had taken on the community. As they delved deeper into the mystery, the clock was ticking, and the stakes could not have been higher. With each passing moment, the hope of finding the siblings alive dwindled, replaced by the grim reality that they may have fallen victim to foul play. The discovery of the tapes and playing cards suggested that the person or persons responsible for their disappearance were playing a sick game, toying with the emotions of those involved. The cryptic messages and the unsettling recordings created a sense of dread, leaving everyone on edge. The investigation soon shifted focus to an individual named Sean Lamb, who had recently purchased the abandoned farmhouse. He became a person of interest due to the possibility that he knew more about the case than he was letting on. However, despite the suspicion surrounding him, Sean Lamb vehemently denied any involvement in the siblings' disappearance. He claimed that he had purchased the farmhouse merely for restoration purposes and had no connection to the missing teenagers. His words, "I love my kids and my grandkids more than anything in this life. I would never do anything to hurt them," added a layer of complexity to the investigation. With each new lead, the investigators faced a daunting task of separating the truth from a web of lies, desperately seeking answers in a labyrinth of deceit. What became increasingly evident was that the siblings had entered the farmhouse willingly. They had not been kidnapped against their will. This revelation presented a perplexing question. What could have compelled them, especially Lilly, to enter an abandoned building? It seemed unlikely that they had ventured there out of curiosity, given the nature of the case and the fear that had gripped the community. The thought of the siblings willingly entering the farmhouse raised unsettling possibilities, suggesting that they may have been lured there under false pretenses. Days turned into weeks with little substantial progress in the investigation. The cryptic clues, the misleading recordings, and the elusive Sean Lamb had the community on edge. Yet in the midst of this unsettling mystery, there was a glimmer of hope. An anonymous tip led the police to another abandoned farmhouse, this time near the siblings' own residence. Could this be where the missing teenagers had gone? The search was conducted with renewed vigor, driven by the hope that they might finally find some answers, some sign of the siblings' whereabouts. Upon closer examination, the police discovered disturbing evidence that chilled them to the bone. In the basement of the farmhouse, they unearthed human bones. The grim discovery sent shockwaves through the community, confirming the worst fears of many. The bones were sent for forensic analysis, and soon the news was confirmed. How did the siblings end up in the isolated farmhouse? And what had transpired there that led to their untimely demise? The investigation continued relentlessly, determined to uncover every detail surrounding the case. The focus now shifted to piecing together the final moments of Lilly and Jack's lives, hoping to find some closure in the face of this devastating loss. Every step of the way, eerie echoes of the past surfaced. Voices believed to be Lilly's were picked up on random radio frequencies, suggesting a sinister game of cat and mouse played out in the final moments of her life. The tapes continued to offer glimpses into a distorted narrative, a twisted puzzle designed to torment those seeking answers. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered unsettling patterns. The cryptic messages on the tapes and playing cards seemed to have a strange order, a secret language that only the perpetrator understood. Was it a twisted game of hide-and-seek leading them from one location to another, all while keeping the siblings hidden? Or was it a macabre form of communication, a sick dialogue between the captor and their captives? Yet despite the haunting clues, There was a disconcerting lack of physical evidence connecting the siblings directly to the second farmhouse. It was as if they had vanished once again, leaving behind nothing but whispers and shadows. The investigation hit another roadblock. The absence of concrete evidence made it difficult to piece together the sequence of events that unfolded after they left the convenience store. Where were they in the interim? Who had they encountered? And what had transpired before their final destination, the abandoned farmhouse? As the case moved towards its tragic conclusion, the question of motive loomed large. What had driven the perpetrator to such extreme measures? And why were the siblings targeted in this horrifying ordeal? The investigation delved into every aspect of the siblings' lives, examining their relationships, their school activities, and their daily routines, hoping to find an answer in the fragments of their everyday existence. The secluded nature of the second farmhouse raised another set of questions. Why had the siblings been taken there? And what had happened within its desolate walls that had led to such a grim outcome? Throughout the investigation, the authorities pursued every lead with unwavering determination. They revisited the crime scene, analyzed digital evidence, and conducted extensive background checks on individuals connected to the siblings. They even reached out to the media, hoping that someone with information would come forward. Yet, despite their best efforts, many questions remained unanswered. The case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan became a haunting reminder of the darkness that could lurk in the most ordinary of places. The idyllic neighborhood where they lived turned into a battleground of suspicion, where every interaction and every glance was scrutinized. Friendships were questioned, rumors spread, and the tight-knit community was torn apart by the chilling events. In the absence of concrete answers, theories began to surface, weaving a tangled web of speculation. Some whispered of a random act of violence, a senseless tragedy that had befallen the innocent siblings. Others spoke of a meticulously planned abduction, a sinister plot orchestrated by a malevolent force. The truth, however, lay buried beneath layers of deceit and manipulation, taunting investigators and leaving the community in suspense. As the investigation reached its final stages, a sense of despair settled over the town. The vibrant laughter of children had been replaced by somber whispers, and the friendly waves across the street had turned into guarded stares. The disappearance of Lilly and Jack had not only shaken the community, but had left an indelible scar on their collective memory. The case served as a grim reminder of the fragility of life and the unpredictability of fate. The siblings, once symbols of innocence and joy, had become pawns in a sinister game, their fates intertwined with a malevolent force that had sought to snuff out their lives. Their story echoed through the empty streets, a haunting melody of what could have been. The case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan remains a chilling enigma, a testament to the darkest recesses of human behavior. Their disappearance and subsequent discovery shook the foundations of their community, leaving behind a legacy of sorrow and unanswered questions. As the sun sets over the town, their story continues to be whispered on the wind, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the relentless pursuit of justice.